Kicking off hour number 3 here on Hurrdat Sports Radio. I'm Ravi, Lulla, Andrew Rogers here with me.
Hello.
Shane Schillerberg producing. We're on AM 590 ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities, as well as KFOR in Lincoln for this third hour. One of every 3 fatal crashes in Nebraska involves an impaired driver. Why take chances if you drink or use other substances? Do not drive. Impaired driving is deceptively dangerous. That's a message from the NDOT Highway Safety Office. What is not dangerous is talking to our friend Michael Bruntz.
I don't know.
Here.
Sometimes it could be.
I mean, you never know. But our friend Michael Bruntz here on Husker 24 from Husker 24/7. Bruntz, how are you this morning? Michael.
Here he is. Now he's potted up.
My bad about that.
Michael, you there?
Yeah.
There we go.
He's
How
like,
does anyone call you Mike?
How about Mikey?
I get Mikey a little bit. A few people call me Mike. Like my college roommates called me Mike. That's kind of the segment that calls me Mike.
Yeah.
Not very many people.
Okay,
Big Mike, not just Mike.
Everybody
Big
I
Mike.
hear, it's mostly Bruntz, some Bruntsy, some Michael. I don't know that I've ever heard anyone call you Mike. I just realized that.
It's very, very rare. Very rare. My mom, if she heard you call me that, would probably murder you. So don't do that.
What's your middle name?
Call you Mike? She doesn't like the Mike?
She doesn't like the Mike.
Oh,
No,
interesting.
That was always. You quickly got corrected when I was growing up, but somebody called me Mike.
Man, you're running a real fine line naming your kid Michael if you don't like the name Mike. Like she's living dangerously.
Well, every third kid born from like 1980 to like 1986 was named Michael. So
That's fair. I think that's fair.
Not a rare name.
No, I think that's fair. It's, you remind me of Michael Jordan in that sense. You don't hear a lot of Mike Jordans out there, It's always Michael.
Yeah, that's well, I appreciate that. That I remember.
And you know what?
Jordan.
You hear a lot of Jordans out there, and we
Yeah.
hear a lot of Bruntsies.
That's what I'm saying.
So you
Michael-
know what? You're essentially Michael Jordan.
Michael Bruntz and Michael Jordan, same guy.
Do you guys remember? I was thinking about this the other day. Are you guys old enough to remember when Gatorade came in glass bottles?
I mean,
Michael Jordan.
I'm not, but I know about Gatorade coming in glass bottles.
I do actually remember. It was very early in my Gatorade drinking days, but I do remember the glass bottle Gatorade, and frankly, I prefer it.
It's kind of dangerous, though, right? Like, you're
Oh,
out on
yeah.
the playground, you got your Gatorade out there. Like, all it takes is like somebody to take a wrong step or something when you're going for a loose ball, and all of a sudden you got a situation on your hands there.
Yeah, I wonder. I have this really ridiculous image. You know those like cheesy 80s bar fight movies where they break the beer bottle off and like start a fight?
Mhm.
I just wonder, like, did that ever happen on a playground where there was like a
Oh,
flagrant
boy.
foul? Somebody gets real mad. They're like busting up the Gatorade bottle and like, let's do this.
Throwing days, you got like Roadhouse going on.
Yeah,
Rucker Park there. Yeah.
I mean, those rough and tumble streets of Millard North in Millard, Nebraska there, you never know what's going on. That's probably why they had to switch to the plastic.
Yeah, just breaking off a bottle on the fence there. And going after somebody.
I will say the glass bottles made it feel more like it gave the Gatorade more gravitas. Like, this is actually going to help me. It came in a glass bottle. This is medicinal.
Yeah, yep. The only reason because of the Michael Jordan thing, and then I got served the algorithm hit me with a Michael Jordan Gatorade commercial from like the 90s, and I was like, okay, I kind of blocked out that they used to have those things in glass bottles, which seems like a terrible idea. I digress.
I dramatically prefer the 90s Jordan Gatorade commercials to the weird like Jordan 2010s Hanes commercials where he's rocking a very questionable mustache.
Yes. Yep. Yeah. Well, the 2010s were hard for him. I mean, if you Google,
not financially.
If you Google Michael Jordan pants, he wore some large pants in the last decade.
It did take him a while to adjust to the lack of baggy pants. It seems like he stuck with that longer than most.
Yeah. I mean, nobody's going to call him on it, but he was out there like in the big pants playing golf. So those of your listeners sitting at the
There you
desk
go.
looking for something to do, Michael Jordan pants. Google it now.
Yep,
Yeah.
it's like the old parachute that you would use in PE class.
Yeah.
He was out there
Yep.
golfing in Jinkos, basically. It was
Basically.
it was, it's too bad because he was a fashion icon during his playing days. So,
Oh,
By the
my.
way, if you want a lot of Gatorade glass bottles, you can get them for about $130 off of eBay for a set of 3.
I actually don't want that at all.
I mean, that's a
cool.
little pricey, but they're out
or
there.
you could get a 12-pack from the store for like $8.
Bruntz, I don't know how we got here. I blame you mostly, but
Yep. Well, we're here.
we are here. Let's talk about another thing where we may not know how people get here, and that's the transfer portal.
But hey, there may be some NIL dollars mixed in,
I
and
would
maybe
say,
it's a Gatorade
let's
deal.
let's get a Gatorade deal in here to sign a quarterback. No, if you're looking at, if I could give you the odds of kind of the handful of guys that have been talked about for Nebraska at quarterbacks, let's say the Will Howard, Kyle McCord, Sam Levitt, who am I missing? Blake Shapen and Cam Ward, or the field. So basically any other quarterback in the transfer portal. Where would you put your money?
I would put it on, and I think I could probably even narrow down
My
I would
list?
probably even narrow down your little crew a little bit there
Okay.
too. I mean, I would probably say
Let's start crossing guys off.
a McCord Shapen Levitt group.
Okay.
Somebody out of there.
McCord,
I-
Shapen, Levin. Okay.
I think I don't know. I mean, I think there's intrigue on certainly intrigue on Nebraska's part. I think from who we've been able to talk to, whether it's the quarterbacks or those around them, I think there's legitimate interest in Nebraska. And I mean, there's a lot of schools out there looking for quarterbacks, right? And I think that Nebraska, despite its offensive flaws and what it did and did not do last year, I think it's an attractive place because the NIL picture is going to be pretty good. You have a quarterback picture that you're going to have to compete and win the job, but at the same time, it's not like you're going in there against somebody that's an incumbent starter. I mean, it's kind of a good situation for guys that are kind of down to the last year or looking to start right away. So I think Nebraska is a little bit more of an attractive option than maybe what people probably would have expected going into the start of portal season. So yeah, I think Nebraska's kind of found guys that they feel fit them, not only offensively but also from just off the field type stuff and things like that. So I would probably go off of that group rather than the field right now.
Bruntz,
where we're staying today.
Bruntz, I spoke about this a little bit yesterday, and BC and I kind of went back and forth on it too. Trying to get the flashy name in the portal, because I think it's important at some point to admit that you have to get somebody in at Nebraska that gets you excited to watch football next year. And out of the 3 names that you narrowed down Ravi's list to, Kyle McCord is really the only name that does that to me over Sam Levitt. Who was that? Over Blake Shapen.
Yeah.
Like, both are good quarterbacks, but those aren't names that get me like fired up to watch Nebraska next season. How important do you think it is to find that flashy name to go along with the fit?
Well, I think it helps you from the standpoint of Nebraska's not going to be super active in this portal cycle, I don't think. But I think if you are able to do that, it helps you bring in others that can help you right away. So I think there's a benefit there. I don't know. I mean, I think to me the fit is so much more important. And I understand what you're saying though about the splash and you need to get people interested. I think you also have to kind of be careful because I think there's also skepticism out there on the part of Nebraska fans about, okay, well we've seen the flash, we've heard we've heard these things about this, ex player, and it hasn't worked out. So I think there's a little bit of that too. But I don't know. I mean, I think for Nebraska, you just have to find somebody that can take you to that next step. And I don't know, certainly of that group that we mentioned, who's probably the flashiest for you? Is it Ward? That's the guy that does it for you?
Well, yeah, Cam Ward's a flashy name, but there's other names like DJU is a name that is something that like nationally is recognized. Like that's kind of how I look at it. Because even like when you said Nebraska kind of should be skeptical, and they should, because last year they said, hey, we know what we can get out of a guy like Jeff Sims. We evaluated him and he's going to be our guy. And then he just wasn't. So you have to wonder about how this staff approaches the portal in terms of, do they know what they're evaluating? But I still don't think Jeff Sims was a name anybody said last year that was like, yes, that's a flashy name. He may have like, star power in terms of, whatever he's graded, but it's not like, oh my gosh, that's the guy that I want out of the portal when, say, last year, Devin Leary would have been more of a flashy name than Jeff Sims.
Yeah. I mean, I get your point. I mean, I think it's got to be fit. And even when you kind of start looking at that list of guys that, that Nebraska's been connected to so far, I mean, Ward would be the flashiest name. Would he be the best fit for what Nebraska wants to do offensively? I don't know. I mean, I think that's kind of the balancing act. So I get it though. I mean, I think Nebraska is probably going to be able to get more of a name than maybe what I probably would have expected going into the portal cycle, and probably a lot of people too. So, I mean, there's that, but there's going to be a lot of pressure on this season coming up, and I think it's a little bit more important to make sure that you find the guy that's going to get you to a bowl game and beyond versus the splash. Although if you can find somebody that can do both for you, more power to you.
Bruntz, you mentioned you think they're probably not going to be quite as active in the portal in general this year, but another spot that I guess they're going to look for some depth and maybe some experience is that wide receiver spot, and that the quarterback transfer probably does directly impact their ability to land wide receiver talent, right?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that's what I was mentioning when I kind of said, like, okay, well, that's one spot where you get a name at quarterback or somebody that's significant. I think that makes it a little bit easier for you because, I mean, guys want to know who's going to be throwing them the ball. And
Ja'Cory Barnes certainly wants to know.
Yeah, he's excited to learn that too. But yeah, I mean, I think that helps you. I mean, I think there's some specific spots that Nebraska is going to have to kick the tires on. I think running back's probably another they'll look at, just given their situation there. But yeah, I mean, it's just the way college football is now. It's such a quarterback-driven game, and when you are able to kind of get free agents the way you are now, there's a lot of attention in there, and you get the right guy can help you make things a little bit easier in other areas too.
We're talking with Michael Bruntz of Husker 24/7. Speaking of transfers at some other positions, how likely do you think, if at all, is it that Princewell and his brother Princely end up teaming up at Nebraska, or is that just kind of a Nebraska pipe dream that we're having here?
I don't know. I mean, I would say pipe dream, but at the same time, I mean, there's a connection there beyond just the fact that they're brothers. Princely had been connected with Matt Rule at Baylor. I think there was a pretty strong connection there during the recruiting process. So, I mean, at least there's that. So it's not like you're just pulling on that thread. But I don't know. I mean, he's kind of at an interesting point too, because he's seen as like a day 2 probably pick in the NFL draft right now.
Mm-hmm.
It feels like that's going to be a pretty that would be an expensive recruitment out of the portal probably. So I don't know. I mean, it would be a great addition for Nebraska. There's no denying that, but at least the fact that there's familiarity there with the family and Matt Rule beyond just the brother being here, that at least is one that I think you have to watch a little bit.
Bruntzy, give me a number, because you don't think it's going to be high. How many portal transfers do you think Nebraska ultimately ends up with?
I would say the number I'm kind of working off of is like maybe 6 tops, 6, 7. I mean, I just don't think right now you have a lot of flexibility to add guys. I mean, we always say, the math is going to work out. They'll figure out how to get to the 85 number when they have to and all that stuff. But, I mean, you guys have seen how few guys have gone into the portal so far. I think Nebraska's done a pretty good job of figuring out how to kind of manage a locker room in the NIL era. I think there's, I think kind of a groundwork or a foundation in the program right now that guys are pretty happy. So, I just don't know that they can make that work numbers-wise, bringing in a ton of guys out of the portal, unless there's significant attrition that has not made itself known yet. And I'm sure that you'll have that after spring ball once guys kind of figure out where they are on the depth chart. But I just don't think it's nearly as active. And based on what Matt Rule and his staff have said, they're going to value development. They're going to value young guys and bringing them up in the program versus going and getting immediate help at certain spots. So they have to address issues at wide receivers one, I think, running backs another. Depending on how things shake out at linebacker, that's probably another position that I would at least consider that they would have to maybe bring somebody in. So the list of needs isn't as long as it was. And I think also just kind of given the way that they flipped the roster so far since they've gotten here, it's not going to be as nearly active as it has been.
Yeah, Bruntz, we've looked at the ability and I guess the desire for Nebraska players to remain at Nebraska with Coach Rule as a positive. And I think largely and long-term it will be, but I mean, there's a bit of a chance that it could hurt their ability to improve next year, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think that's part of the evaluation process is you have to weigh that. Like, what's a young guy going to be in the program 2 years from now versus, what you might be able to get out of somebody that's in the portal now. And that's the balancing act. I mean, I think some programs would say, we have to be better now. I think Nebraska feels like they've got guys where they can be better now, but there's going to be attrition. I mean, there's still guys that, I think you could probably look at the roster and say that there's probably a slim chance that this guy or that guy's on the roster, come next fall. But I just think they're going to be a little bit choosier. I mean, I think that's just kind of how they see the program, and they're not afraid to bring in guys. I mean, I think, there was some kind of undercurrent out there among fans like, oh, I wonder what they're actually going to do quarterback wise. How aggressive are they going to be? And, I think Nebraska's shown that they're willing to go out and really have, improve at a spot where they feel like they need to. So I don't think they're going to be shy about going and getting guys that they need to, but I think generally they're always going to, go back to the guys that they have on their roster. And the thing is too, Matt Rule has the ability still to kind of play with roster numbers given as, he's a new head coach through the spring, but that number that he can kind of do that with is also dwindling as well as guys that were here before he got here have left the program.
Bruntzy, stepping away from the Huskers for a moment, there was an NCAA proposal that came out yesterday, a couple of days ago. Charlie Baker proposed a way to create new subdivision, but also give enhanced educational benefits. Have you looked into that at all?
A little bit, not too much. I've kind of been portal focused and recruiting stuff like that the last couple of days, but I've read a little bit.
Yeah. Okay. So I won't ask you anything like too deep in it, but maybe you can help solve something I'm confused about. Maybe you and Ravi can help solve something I'm confused about, because under the proposal, okay, it said schools in both Division I subdivisions, which continue to compete against one another for NCAA championships, except for an FBS football, which is run by the college football playoff, right? So if teams were to break off and go into a subdivision, They pay the money, whatever it is, to go to a different one. We'll call it Tier 1, for example. Does Tier 1 create their own NCAA like championship game? Like, is that how that works?
It feels like that's where it's headed, right?
Okay. So
Yeah, I think it's like a super league. I think it'd be like the
but it's like it's a
league
super league championship, and then there's a college football playoff still for the other teams that didn't qualify.
Else. Yeah.
Okay. So there's the bridge that I've been trying to marry there, because all night I was losing sleep over, man, if somebody elevates, are they gonna play in a championship game someday? Can they lift a trophy above their head? Oh my goodness. No, this proposal is kind of crazy though, because it's a pay for play type of thing, but it all factors in to the NIL stuff, which is what we've been talking about through the transfer portal this whole time.
Well, it would be, and correct me if I'm wrong, it would come directly from the schools, right?
Yeah.
The school pays the people directly.
I think that's kind of where it's been headed. I mean, I think if you look at what Nebraska's done with some of their in-house moves, and you kind of read what Trev Alberts has said, I think that's kind of, for a while, kind of the direction that Nebraska's kind of anticipated things going. And again, like I said, I kind of just took a cursory glance at this stuff. It still somehow would require congressional involvement, right?
Right.
Okay. All right. Well,
it's going to be a long time.
I never understand.
I was gonna say, I hope you're not still losing sleep over this. It's gonna be a while.
No, you guys helped me solve it. I had to talk it out with somebody, but see, not enough people read as much as I read 10 different sources of information yesterday, Bruntzy, before I made my video. 10, and nobody's article matched up. Nobody's, and I'm just like, here we are.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. It just seems like everything is inching towards football being separate from everything else, and especially that level of basically schools are going to have to decide, are we in this or are we not? And it seems like, at least from Nebraska's perspective, that they've been expecting that for a while. Like there's going to be some break off, some change in oversight and who's paying and, whether they're employees or not. I mean, all that has to be determined. But I think, with, at least here locally, I mean, I think that's been the assumption that that's the direction things are headed sooner rather than later. So, I mean, that to me, just the headlines and what little reading I did, it just kind of seemed like, okay, this is a little bit of an embrace of whatever that next step might be. But I don't know that anybody really has a great handle on that yet either, which is kind of scary.
Bruntz, 30 seconds here. Let's start the interview or end the interview the way we started it. Is there another celebrity endorsement commercial you'd like to reminisce about real quick?
Is Brett Favre still doing the copper thing? Or is that done?
That's done.
I think I've seen Jerry Rice on him now.
Oh, really?
I think so. Yeah.
I don't
or maybe
see that
Romo.
maybe
Romo.
Oh, wow.
The copper fit ones?
I don't stay up as late as I used to, so I don't know where that
copper fit athlete. Let's figure this out.
We'll figure it out. I don't think he's doing Levi's anymore either. I think they may not have loved his defrauding the Wrangler. How dare I'm sorry. Oh my gosh. My bad. Bruntz, good time as always. We'll talk to you again next week.
See you guys.
See ya.
Hurrdat Hot Seat coming up next.